The spread of Islam throughout the world happened through a number of different means. Sometimes traders would bring Islam with them to new lands on their trading journeys. Other times, conquest of other empires would expose new lands to Islam. And sometimes, individual Sufis and other scholars would venture out to new lands with the sole purpose of engaging in dawah. But in the early modern era, a new form of transmission began. Muslims began to be taken as slaves and sent to work in distant lands, indirectly spreading Islam to new frontiers. A prime example of this was the life of Shaykh Yusuf Makassar. He was born in 1626, 1035 after Hijrah, in the Sultanate of Gawa on the island of Sulawesi, now part of Indonesia. Like many other figures of that era, particularly those from the far edges of the Muslim world, much of his scholarly Islamic education occurred when he traveled to Mecca for Hajj. In particular, Shaykh Yusuf was exposed to the Tasawwuf of Ibn Arabi through the Sufi master and philosopher Ibrahim al-Qurani. By the time Shaykh Yusuf tried to head home, his homeland had been conquered by the Dutch East India Company as part of their attempts to monopolize the Southeast Asia spice trade. Instead, Shaykh Yusuf settled on the island of Java, where he spent over 10 years serving as a qadi and advisor to the ruler of the Batin Sultanate. Eventually, however, European imperialism would reach here as well, and along with the Sultan, Shaykh Yusuf led the resistance against the militarily superior Dutch. He was eventually captured and battled and exiled, first to Sri Lanka, and then in 1693 to the Cape Colony in present-day South Africa. The Dutch were establishing a slave colony on the southern tip of Africa, where slaves from Africa and Asia were brought to work as part of the Netherlands' growing mercantile empire. Despite the conditions of his exile and imprisonment, Shaykh Yusuf used the opportunity to engage in dawah, teaching locals as well as imported slaves the basics of Islam. His settlement outside of Cape Town became a center for Islam in the region, with both slaves and free men flocking to him as the first Muslim scholar in South Africa. Shaykh Yusuf died in 1699, and the area he lived in and preached became known as Makassar in honor of his homeland from which he was exiled. The Muslim community in South Africa continued to grow after his death, with forced continued slavery growing the community throughout the 1700s. He is still honored as one of the most important figures in the history of Islam in South Africa.
Let's